can measure and see if you have enough bandwidth.
Because I think that's where my problem is. I don't think it's my computer, because it's new.
No, if it says low bandwidth, that is most likely the router, if any, if that's a real error message.
Yes,
Having been
it
through
is.
that several times before.
I think we had.
did you?
And we called Verizon and they were able to check it. I think just
Remote.
We have called them so
Yeah,
many
they
times.
can.
They do this,
Did
they
they-
do
Right,
that,
they
and then the
can do
problem's
that.
still there.
You call them and ask
them
them
again.
specifically, how do you check your bandwidth? That you're getting a low bandwidth
Yeah.
message, they may be able to deal with.
So you can see that, because I can't see that. It says, yeah, now it says, there it is. And that's what it always says.
Yeah, it came up with that message before.
It'll do that, and then everything will freeze while I'm watching it, and then they won't hear me, and it's just like, so it's Verizon then. Okay, thank
Well,
you. I
there
needed to
is-
know that because,
There is a secret.
okay,
When you have low bandwidth and you're having trouble hearing or seeing or being heard, your computer uses more when it has video and audio. And although in the Zoom world, you're supposed to keep your video on, if you are having low bandwidth at that moment, sometimes it's the signal. By turning off your video, you'll be able to hear and speak, but you won't be able to. You're using less of your computer's stuff. It's like those of us who like live stream sports onto our phones or onto our computers, you can turn off the video and then it's a much higher quality, but you can only hear. So if it ever happens that you really want to hear something on Zoom, the secret is turning off the video, and then you'll have it'll
well,
increase
my
your
screen
bandwidth.
freezes. Like now you're frozen in my screen, and that's not everybody, that's me.
Yeah, only you are frozen for us too. And it's funny, you're the only one frozen. We can hear you again.
Right.
So what's happening when you have this moment here? You want me to do it? I can turn your video off. You can always turn it back on. So watch. I'm going to stop your video. So your video stopped. All it says is Ellen Whitman, but now you can hear us. Can you see us still?
I see you, but you're frozen.
Oh, are we all frozen or just me?
And it's the same picture that was before you turned. Pretty much it says, well, there's no more pictures. So yeah, nobody's up there, right?
Nobody's
Still
up there.
saying her bandwidth is low, Rabbi.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's
Sometimes if you reboot the router, that helps it too.
that helps me a lot. So hello, Bob and
Well-
D's Nuts. I don't know who that is. And we got Carol and Alan. We got Edie. We got my puppy. We have
Oh, that's your
Carol. We have
puppy.
Heidi. We have John. We have Shelly. We have Rochelle. We have Mark, Joan, and Irv. And Ellen. Ellen, do you have Richard with you too?
No, he's not going to be able to be this session.
Well, then
Rabbi, I
it's-
wanted to ask you, before we start, I may have asked this before and I forget, did you ever watch A Good Place?
I love The Good Place. I didn't see the last season. So I mean, everyone has told me the last episode, but I've not seen the last season. I love that show.
You're ahead of me. I'm only up to
Okay.
season one, but I wanted to mention, we're having a class down here, how Mishnah relates to The Good Place or vice versa. And
Last night we taught our 10th graders, myself and Rabbi Meyer from Temple Manuel, and we used The Good Place to teach our 10th graders. So go on. And it's
Yeah,
from the Talmud.
yeah, that's what we're doing, and it's really interesting. I just
It
the
is.
ethical issues that pop up.
There is The Good Place is one of the best and we have a class in our Hebrew high school on The Good Place. We show episodes and I teach it as well. Because the teenagers know The Good Place. So great show. I also recommend, if you like shows that make you wonder theologically, Lucifer. Silly show,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
very, very good theological Jewish questions. But The Good Place, there's no doubt to me, there is some knowledgeable Jew behind that show. It's too good.
I would just say for the rest of the people on the call, my rabbi here in DC is Shelley Siegel's brother.
Very good. Well, it is 12 o'clock, so we're not in a rush. As these classes get more controversial, there's also less on them. As I like when I try to find, should Jews tell Jewish jokes? Although I think that's a very good question, there's less out there. It's not like the Talmud comments on this. And then overestimating, oh, sorry, that's giving it away, right? So I'm not going to give you the punchline yet. It's, again, the Jewish way. So welcome, Georgia, Harvey, Bernice, Ron, Bob, D's nuts. We do not know who you are. Hopefully you're not a Zoom bomber. Carol, Alan, Edie, Carol. Let's see, another Carol. Heidi, John, okay, and Shelly, and Rochelle, Mark, Joan, and Irvin, Ellen without Richard. But we turned off her video so she can hear us better. Can you hear us, Ellen?
I can hear you fine.
Perfect. Now, the only thing will happen, Ellen, is I'm going to mute everyone when I do my little rant. And then we won't be able to see you if you're waving your hand. So you'll just have to kind of, you figure out how to let us know if you're there. But that's,
Okay.
So I'm going to get started here. I'm probably just going to mute everyone up once. You also always have the ability, not always, but you will have the ability to unmute yourselves. I think with, 17 squares, I'm not going to go to, I'm okay because I can still see the whites of your eyes. So I'm not going to go to speaker view on mine. Technically, you could go to speaker view and just see the square. Plus, we just lost the square. So, so it only gets better. Oh, there, they're back. So, but I'm going to keep it on gallery view for right now. And if I go over, 20 squares, then I'll go to speaker view. So we're going to get started. Welcome to Tough Questions. I'm trying to trick you with the question. So the question was, why are Jews so successful? And then I guess I gave you a little hint, are we, with a question mark. And I'll tell you a story. And again, if you're new to Tough Questions, I rant and rave for about 20 to 30 minutes at the most. And then you get to attack me for the next 20 or 30 minutes. So I start, and it goes like this. There is a school down the street named Hoover. And the principal, actually the superintendent called me up and says, we're having a problem in high school. And what was the problem? And those of you who have been in classes with me in the last 2 years may have heard this problem. That in the high school, they do these pep rallies. Back in the old days, before there was a pandemic, they used to be in school. And in this open our schools, I have a sign on my lawn, close our schools. And so we go, so now we have this, back in the old days, we have a pep rally. My kids would always say, do we have to go to school? There's a pep rally. What do they do at this pep rally? I've never seen it before, but the principal explains, the superintendent says, all the kids sit in sections. And how do they divide the sections up? They're separated into their middle schools, because all these different middle schools came into the high school. So how do you sit? You sit in your middle school section, and they have like bling, like, it's Lincoln, it's, Jefferson, and there's Hoover. And the problem the superintendent had was the Hoover section had, so they sit by elementary schools. Thank you, Bernice. That's elementary schools. There's even more elementary schools. Thank you. Those are elementary schools, not middle schools. Elementary schools. I don't know, there are like 7 of them or something. I'm sure I'll be corrected. And what is it over the Hoover school? This is about 2 years ago. It says Juver. Jewver. And the Hoover, they turned into like bagels, and they made a menorah, and it was like the theme, they have themes. The theme of the Hoover school is Jew. And superintendent says to me, we got a problem here, Rabbi. I really don't know how to handle this. I don't want to look like an anti-Semite, but it looks anti-Semitic, because one of the parents came to the pep rally and said, what the heck is Juver? So we get involved, all the rabbis and the superintendent, the principal, and yes, 7 elementary schools. My kids and I attended Juver. Thank you. And so, and I'm like, I have a problem with this at all, because what if you joined the school after middle or elementary school, and now you're displaced? And kids could move around. They're allowed to sit. A Hoover kid could sit with Jefferson, but our problem was Juver. And so I talked to them, and I said, there is a problem with the Juver, and it goes a little something like this. I went to some of the kids who made the signs and some of the parents who made the signs for the section. And they said, well, there's so many Jews at Hoover. And I talked to my own kid, so I guess he was still in school at the time. I said, have you seen this before? Yeah, everyone does it. It's cute. It's in good fun because there's so many Jews in Hoover. So I started talking to some of the Hoover kids. I'm like, There's so many. I mean, like when we moved here, we almost lived next to Hoover. That was one of our choices, but kind of a far walk, even though I drive to the synagogue. And I'm like, oh, there must be so many Jews here. And oh, there's like 2 Jews in this class and 3. Yeah. But I asked my kid, how many Jews do you think? Oh, it's like 30%. It's like half the class is Jewish. And this is a funny thing. When we overestimate Jews, we're actually being anti-Semitic. There is a secret. And we do it to ourselves even, but they do it to us as well. And this idea of overemphasizing, there really aren't that many Jews at Hoover. Maybe once upon a time there were more, but it wasn't like 50%. Don't worry about that. And I don't have numbers. It's funny. You can look up many numbers on the internet. I can tell you how many ICU beds are left in Allegheny County, but I can't tell you how many Jews are in Hoover. They don't really put that on the internet. But I can tell you from talking to the kids, it ain't 40%. It ain't 30%. It ain't 20%. It ain't 10%. It's, there's some Jews. But the idea of calling Hoover Jew York, can be a problem. And even when we do it to ourselves, when we overestimate our numbers or our importance, we feed into a certain form of anti-Semitism. So the secret of today's class on Tough Questions was, I'm going to talk about our success, but I was really sneaking in our overestimation of success and the dangers of it. So I kind of tricked you into showing up today to Tough Questions. If you were coming here to pat yourselves on the back because we're so smart, I wanted to give you another point of view, and then you can attack me. And it goes like this. So sit back and relax. CNN, 80 million people watch CNN, 73 million people watch Fox. So 80 million watch CNN. On CNN, a CNN poll reveals the depth of anti-Semitism in Europe. So don't worry, it's not here in Pittsburgh or in America, only in Europe. So anti-Semitism in Europe on CNN. Among the key findings of a survey carried out by a pollster, Comres for CNN, the CNN Comres poll interviewed more than 7,000 people across Europe, with more than 1,000 respondents from each in Austria, France, Germany, Great Britain, Hungary, Poland, and Sweden. Commissioned and completed before the Tree of Life massacre, the deadliest attack ever on Jewish community in the United States. Here it goes. So this is not the whole article. I'm just going to focus on what I care about. More than a quarter of Europeans, more than 25% polled, believe Jews have too much influence in business and finance. Nearly 1 in 4 said Jews have too much influence in conflict and wars across the world. I hear Jewish kids. Oh, Jews are the cause of all the wars. Jewish kids. 1 in 5 said that Jews have too much influence in the media. And the same number believe they have too much influence in politics, right? The protocols, the elders of Zion. We are controlling everything. It's the international Jew. It's a myth. Traditional anti-Semitic stereotypes still resonate across the continent. In Poland and Hungary, not the best place to be a Jew sometimes, about 4 out of 10 people, 40% said Jews have too much influence in business and finance around the world. Roughly 1 out of 3, 33% there said Jews were too influential in political affairs around the world. And more than a quarter of Polish and Hungarians said they have too much power in media. A third of Austrians said Jews have too much influence in finance, right? We own the banks. Well, a quarter of French and German respondents said so. About 1 in 5 in all 3 countries said Jews have too much influence in media, a quarter, wars and conflicts. I think you're getting the point. The belief in Jewish power runs parallel with enormous overestimates. That's the focus today. Overestimates of the numbers of Jews in the world. I found this fascinating. It was the ADL, which I'm going to next, which really pointed this out. About 2/3 of the respondents in the CNN survey guessed too high when asked what percentage of the world is Jewish, what percentage of Hoover is Jewish. And similar numbers got the answer wrong for their own countries. They overestimate the numbers of Jews. Oh, there's a lot of Jews. There's too many Jews. A quarter of Hungarians estimated the world is more than 20% Jewish. Ask a Hungarian, and 25% of them believe the world is 20% Jewish, and 20% of British and Polish respondents said the world is 20% Jewish. 20. They were off by a factor of 100. About 0.2, not 2%, 0.2% of the world's population is Jewish, according to the Pew Research Center's global research, blah, blah, blah. 4 out of 10 respondents in the survey, 40%, thought their own countries were between 3 and 10% Jewish. In fact, Israel is the only country in the world where more than 2% of the population is Jewish. No other country has more than 2% Jews except for Israel. Not a surprise. The overestimates, and I'm finishing up CNN right now, the overestimates came even as majorities or near majorities in every country CNN polled said they were not aware of ever having met a Jewish person. Most of the people they interviewed, if not all, said, I've never met a Jew before, and yet they believe that 20% of their country is Jewish. This is a problem, okay? You may think this is a good thing. This is not a good thing. 2/3 of Germans, Austrians, and Polish said they don't think they have ever socialized with a Jew, while about half of the people in Britain, France, and Hungary, and Sweden said the same. So they don't know a Jew, never met a Jew, don't think they've ever met a Jew, and yet they think the world is Jewish, and the 20%, that 1 out of 5 people are Jewish. So here comes the ADL. This is where I kind of learned this. I never really saw this as anti-Semitic. I'm like, hey, they think there's that, yes, the Jews on the banks, I hear the anti-Semitism. The Jews on the media, I hear that the Jews are behind COVID. I've heard the anti-Semitism. I never really thought about that bragging about Jews could be anti-Semitic, but I understand now. This is the ADL. I still like the ADL. More than a quarter of people surveyed, 26%, and this is the worldwide, harbor anti-Semitic attitudes. That represents an estimated 1,090,000,000 adults. So approximately 1,090,000,000 adults, I think I got the zeros right, around the world harbor anti-Semitic attitudes. Just, ish, somewhere in the ballpark. 41% of the survey respondents believe that Jews are more loyal to Israel than to the other countries they live in. A very old Middle Ages Napoleon kind of thing. We're not really American. We're not really German. We're not really French. We care more about Israel. And we're living among you. We have infiltrated. This is the most widely accepted statement of all the anti-Semitic stereotypes tested. 18% of respondents believe that the total worldwide Jewish population exceeds 700 million people. So 1 out of 5 people believe there's 700 million Jews out there. The actual number in the world is 13 million Jews, 13,700,000. People who overestimate the world's Jewish population by this amount are more likely to harbor anti-Semitic attitudes with an index score of 38%. They like numbers. But the more likely you are to overestimate Jews in the world, the more likely you are to be anti-Semitic. This is all over the surveys. 74% of respondents have never met a Jewish person. A majority of people, 48 out of 102 countries and territories surveyed, said it's probably true that Jews have too much power in the business world. So my question if the reason you showed up is because you actually saw the title, aren't we more successful? I mean, I look around, right? We're doing pretty well. I mean, not all of us, but I had a person, I told you this, in Georgia, who said they want to be Jewish. I said, why do you want to be Jewish? They said, because I want to be rich. And I said, it doesn't actually work that way. You don't convert to Judaism and you are rich. But doesn't being Jewish mean, for the most part, being rich? Weren't Jewish bankers to blame for the 2008 financial crisis, as I saw on the internet? Aren't we behind the banks and the media? All right. So there is no number to the percentage of successful Jews. I'm going to talk about the myth of successful Jews. It isn't true. All right. These things, we do not control the banks or the politics or behind the wars, no matter how much Mel Gibson drinks alcohol, gets pulled over by the police and gets quoted on the police, audio tape. It does because just because Mel Gibson said it doesn't mean it's true. It is clear, and there's an old joke. Guy goes up to the rabbi, new rabbi in town. Guy goes up to the rabbi, during Kiddush and goes, "You're stupid," and walks away. And then he comes over and he says, "Yeah, you're funny looking," walks away. And the third time the guy comes up, walks away, and the new rabbi says, "What is that? What's that? What's with the person there?" He says, "Oh, don't listen to him. He just repeats everything he hears." So, don't blame Mel Gibson. He's only repeating what he hears. He didn't make up this idea that the Jews are controlling the world. It is clear that the number of Jews in extremely successful positions in society is disproportionate to the number of Jews there are in the world. There is a truth that we make up a disproportionate number of successful stories. The amount of Jewish football players versus the amount of Jewish football team owners is quite impressive. All right? Less than, and here's the truth, less than 0.2% of the world is Jewish. We said that. And yet 22% of Nobel Prize winners are Jewish. 41% of Nobel laureates in economics are Jewish. 41% of the world Nobel laureates are Jewish. And 11% of the world's billionaires, 11% are Jewish. And 20% of the world's richest 50 people are Jewish, although we make up 0.2% of the world. There is truth that we have a disproportionate number of Jews among, some of the elite. Albert Einstein invented modern physics. Sigmund Freud invented psychoanalysis. Isaac Asimov defined the laws of robotics. The computer and internet field is full of big names in the Jewish community. 6 of the 8 biggest Hollywood studios were founded by Jews, including, as we studied in history class, our Pittsburgh history class, Warner Brothers came from this area. But, being of Jewish descent does not ensure success, and not all Jews are successful. And converting to Judaism does not make you rich. 2 factors, and now this is my last and third article, and then I'm opening it up. I told you it's not as much because no one wants to answer these questions. So we're going to questions that don't have a lot on them out there because we want to apologize. 2 factors, according to Daniel Lapidus, network coordinator and writer for Our Economy magazine. It tries to explain the overrepresentation of Jewish people in high-ranking positions. And he has these 2 reasons why he believes Jews are more, disproportionately, in these places. He says education and history. Do I want to go back to that? Yeah. I'll tell you, most of you have heard this story. It was a very popular, when that came out, I remember when it came out, like 10, 15, I don't think it was even 20 years ago, that, 22% of Nobel Prize winners are Jewish. It was something we were very proud of, right? You go to synagogue and you hear a rabbi go, "Did you hear that, we make up 22% of the Nobel Prize winners?" And I heard that, and then the next rabbi repeats it because you're kind of proud of it, right? We should be, right? 22%. We make up 0.2% of the world, and 22% of the Nobel Prize winners are Jewish. And then I was sitting, and I told this story to many of my classes. I don't know if this one. I was sitting in a service where I heard a rabbi say it, and the person next to me, who doesn't know me, said, "That's a little racist." I never heard it from a non-Jewish view, a non-Jew who's sitting in services, because there are some who've infiltrated us in a good way. And, hearing us say that somehow being Jewish makes us smarter, better, more, blah, 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 it kind of crosses a line to the naked ear. And then you try to explain it, and it gets even worse. We were in a meeting once, and someone's like, one of us tried to explain it. "Well, we care more about education." That's like, I love that one. Like, and they, I love the word they, and they don't. I love you. Try not to use the word they in front of me. I tell you, you don't know where my mind goes. So, but when you say we care about education, what does that? You have to understand what it sounds like to someone else, and then change it from Jew to black or something. Here it goes. Two factors, according to Daniel Lapidus, to explain the overrepresentation of Jewish people in high-ranking positions: education and history. Education is central to Jewish life. We believe in education, right? Thank you, Harvey, for the name of the schools. Okay. The Shema, Shema Yisrael Adonai, we shall teach our children day and night. The Talmud, you must teach your child. Emphasize the importance of teaching and learning. It even provides guidelines on what age school should begin, right? We don't just say you should worship God. We do, like, you should teach your child at 8 years old this and 7 years old that. We value education, but here's a secret. So do they. And to think they don't, a little racist. Right? Valuing education is not unique to Judaism. Although 58% of Jewish people have degrees, 58%, not 100%, not 90, 58% of Jewish people have degrees. Do you know that 85% of the Hindu community holds college degrees? So you want a college degree. If you want a college degree, 58% of Jews have a college degree. But guess what? 85% of Hindus have a college degree. So do they care more about education than we do? And being Jewish make us somehow smarter? We do value education, but so do they. And name a minority. I know, just be careful. Don't say it out loud. So here it goes. So we do value education, but so do they. History. I'm almost done, by the way. Let's see. Yeah, almost done. History. The story of the Jewish people has created a mentality of resilience. We're still around. 3,000 years. They try to kill us. They didn't succeed. Let's eat, right? Rome's gone. Greece is gone. We're still here. Egypt, not what it was. Okay, which is perhaps correlated with pursuing success. Is surviving success? I guess you could say so, but it's not the same thing. Jews have been associated with money historically since medieval times. Most of you know from any history class or any speaker series that there's a reason why we're associated with money and money lending and Shakespeare and the big nose. Here it goes. A lot of Jews had to practice money lending to survive. We had no choice. Okay, we had no choice because we were restricted from owning land or engaging in any other business. It was the only job we were allowed. Christian doctrine at the time, Middle Ages, forbade Christians from lending money. Ironically, it was in our Torah, right? Our Torah is their Torah, our Bible is their Bible. Our Bible says we're not supposed to charge interest to each other. If I loan earned money to a Jew to a Jew, I shouldn't charge interest. Here's the problem. The Christians were following that Bible and said Christians shouldn't charge interest to Christians. How do you run a bank or loan money? The Jew will do it. Okay, so Christian doctrine at the time forbade Christians from lending money to each other. So Jews had the industry to ourselves. Oh, wonderful. We're the money lenderers. You know what? Who you don't like? The person you owe money to. All right, it's not you don't want to be. So tensions between lenders, often Jewish, and debtors, often Christian, were often peppered with religious undertones. The Spanish Inquisition, if you read Mitch Kaplan's books, he got a new one. He has a new one coming out. I have a copy of it. I love his stuff. He does historical fiction. His first one, By Fire, by Water, has a wonderful take on the Spanish Inquisition, which I think is historically correct. And that is, it wasn't really about, we don't trust Jews or new Christians. They wanted our money, and they were going to get our money because Spain was having trouble. So expel the Jews, keep our money, and then they squandered it. So tensions between lenders, Jewish and Christian, often peppered with religious undertones. The profession Jews held was seen as unethical by the Christian community. They wouldn't do it, but Jews couldn't engage in anything else because of the restrictions we faced. We have been expelled from 109 nations since the year 250. A third of the world Jewry was wiped out in the Holocaust. And yet, We're known as greedy, money-lending conspirators seeking global domination. And when we overestimate Jewish success, we are falling into a trap we don't even know. Because when they overestimate our numbers, Juver and Jew York and Jews in politics and media, we're just feeding into an anti-Semitic view that we do control the world. That's if Mel Gibson says something about Jews, he's blacklisted from the media. Yeah, and we have to watch ourselves when we overestimate our success. That is my rant for 26 minutes. I promise 20 to 30 minutes of me ranting, and then you get to attack me for 20 to 30 minutes. I'm going to look at the chats for a second. Everyone is telling me what the schools. We don't have a percentage of Jews successful. And yes, there are scholarships out there too. Okay, so who would like, if you want to say something, raise your hand or wave and I can unmute you, or you can unmute yourself. I still don't know who D's Nuts is, but it doesn't look like a Zoom bomber, so I think we're safe. All right, so questions, concerns, you happy you want to go to sleep? Harvey, you're trying to say something here? No? Then I'll mute you back up. All right, good. So I saw your light go on. Anyone want to start us off? Anyone have any comments? Mark, you're usually pretty good at a comment if I call on you. Here it goes.
I'll start us off.
Thank you, Mark. You know,
I'm ready.
Mark's my plant. He doesn't know it, but he's my plant.
I'm your shield.
If Mark, if you were not there, you know, it's kind of like a philosophical question. What happens when I'm not in the room? We just sit here.
Yeah.
Completely.
Well, a question and maybe a comment. The question is I don't see what you've been saying is intrinsically anti-Semitic.
Right.
It contributes to the thought of anti-Semitic. So if we were Italian and we bragged about, oh, we have the greatest whatever, or we have a huge...
We made pasta.
Yeah, you know, or we have all these athletes or whatever it happens to be, I don't think we'd be having this conversation. And I think that to me is an important distinction that yes, it contributes to those people who believe in these anti-Semitic tropes, but are not intrinsically anti-Semitic to say that. The second point, which occurs to me, I never thought about it, is there any real anti-Semitism in the eastern part of the world? India, China, the Philippines? Because it seems to me that we're talking about a Western phenomenon primarily, and I just don't know, but that's a question I've had.
So I studied it. It's been a long time. There was something fascinating about China or Asia, Eastern world, and that is very few Jews, I've never met a Jew before. Certainly Holocaust denying was much more popular in the Eastern world because they've never didn't hear about it kind of thing. But there is anti-Semitism just because they've never met a Jew before. So they just see what they hear kind of thing. They repeat what they hear. So there was an ADL report on the Eastern world. Now, yes, the highest level of anti-Semitism is like the Middle East, again, once you leave Israel, but there is anti-Semitism in the Eastern world based mostly on ignorance. I'm not like I met a Jew and no one's beating up Jews in China and Japan because there's just not a lot to beat up. But there is like the concept of that they hold anti-Semitic views that because they never met a Jew before. Like if you ask me about gypsies, I find gypsies fascinating because I didn't know they existed. I mean, they were in the movies, Johnny Depp or something. And then I go to Augusta, Georgia, and there's a gypsy community. I never met with them, mingled with them. I mean, there was like 10 kids and they all wore suits and ties, even though they're 8 years old and they had earrings. And that's what they look like. So I don't have any interaction with gypsies or know anything about gypsies. I didn't, and so I probably harbor whatever I learned from the movies, and that's what we see in the Eastern world is there is certain stereotypes. If you look up the ADL report on on China, there is anti-Semitism, but it's more they have some anti-Semitic thoughts. Because if you ask, do you believe something, and you don't know anything about Jews, you believe like, oh yeah, I hear that they have too much power. It's the too much power thing or thing. By the way, Mark, your first thing, you're right. There is the Jew has. When I was in rabbi school, we studied all these different forms of literature. And one form of literature that's very popular is the apologetic. Yeah, the apologetic is we apologize for being us, right? Where the Italian can say, look at all the things we did, but when the Jew does it, the Jew's in trouble for it, right? We apologize for being the chosen people. That's like the original apologetics. We're not the chosen people, we're the choosing people. We're not the chosen people, we're God's last choice, because they'll kill us if we're the chosen people. And so there is this idea that the Jew downplays our success because we get in trouble for it, where other people can embrace it. And I'm not claiming that's fair, but you're right. There is, if someone else said the same thing, look at what Italians have done. A great example. Or any group, they get away with it. When we do it, and so should we be proud of 22% of Nobel Prize winners? Of course I'm proud of it. Yeah, it's kind of like Jewish jokes last week. But can you tell that? Yeah, but should you say that in a mixed crowd, or how do you say it? And what is it? And Shelley, you're next. And not only how do you say it, we were having a conversation not so long ago in the synagogue, I remember, and there was a congregant who really believed that Jews are genetically better than non-Jews. I mean, they believe that. And, I just like, okay, keep that to yourself. Don't let other people hear it. Shelley, what do you got?
Two things. For one, the Philippines is a devoutly Catholic country and is very anti-Semitic.
Okay.
Okay. Two, when somebody says to me, you're from the chosen people, my answer always is, what are we chosen for? All they want to do is kill us.
Tevye, you're Tevye. That's what Tevye
That's
said.
right. I'm a Tevye.
Yeah. God, can't you choose someone else every now and then after a pogrom? I think it was. Yeah. Very good. Al, coming to you. Go ahead. Got you.
I'm trying to unmute. Here we go.
Okay, yeah.
When you started this conversation about Juver and so on, and then you talked about the percentage of Nobel Prize winners, who knows how many Catholic Nobel Prize winners there are? Anytime you see a biography on Wikipedia, be it a politician, an actor, an athlete, somebody notable at all, a business person, you will see Jewish heritage mentioned if they're Jewish, and you don't see it about any other sector of the population.
Right. And it gets even better. It's not just Jewish heritage. It's not Jewish heritage. Like, it's one thing to say, oh, they're Catholic, right? It's another thing to say Roethlisberger, not a Jew, because, he's got burger at the end of his name. Yeah. So what we do see is, Al, you're right. If the person is at all even sounds Jewish or looks Jewish, it's not only that we say, oh, they are Jewish. If they're not Jewish, it's like listed. Like, that's a thing. And the morning minion, God bless the morning minion people, right? So whenever someone comes onto the stage, a sports person especially, we always look up at Bruegger's, but back in the old days when we had humans. So we went to Bruegger's and we would sit there at the table, Jew or not a Jew, websites, right? Jew or not a Jew. Oh, and a new sports player, a new person on Steelers. We keep waiting for another, punter or kicker, because they're all kickers, Jewish kicker. So yeah, Al, you're right. There is that. Yeah, the part of Jew, half a Jew, right? Adam Sandler's song. It's coming. Hanukkah's coming again. He had that song like 8 Nights of Christmas, Hanukkah, and he's like, the whole song is about who's a Jew. Harrison Ford, quarter Jew. Bette Midler, full Jew. And we kind of like it. I mean, part of us likes when we hear there's a Jew who's when Edelman won the unfortunately it's the Patriots. Let's forget the Patriots part to it. When Julian Edelman won the MVP for the Super Bowl, that's the first Jew to ever win the MVP of the Super Bowl. Now, when what's his name? Who's the the baseball guy, he won MVP, and then turns out he was cheating. So we're like, great, he's a Jew. And then we found out he's cheating. Like, oh, not great as a Jew. So yeah, I think there is that Jewish lineage thing, which can work in two different directions as well. I saw a hand raised somewhere. It was like on the bottom of my screen, which everyone has a different screen. So I can't tell you. Okay, Rochelle, I'm coming to you. I see your finger. Go ahead.
I wanted to make a comment on what you just said about us being proud of people, Jewish people who make it big in some way. Just like we're ashamed of Jewish people, we feel that shame inside of Jewish people who are naughty, naughty, naughty.
Right, Bernie Madoff.
We're such a small part of the world, we're probably related to them. I mean, we feel a relationship. That's a cousin.
Yeah. It's and so we do take pride when the Jew does something good, and when Madoff does something bad, that's really bad. Yeah, and then there's Jews like I said Bernie, and then I realized I have to say Madoff because the more popular Bernie now is Sanders. And right, yeah, some Jews like him, and some Jews hate him, and something he should get his Jew card taken away, and some are proud of these Jews. Like you just can't win. You know, it's but yeah, and then when the Jews does something bad, you know, they're like, oh, cheating Jews, right? You know, so God help us. You know, Larry, what do you got?
No, it's just two things. Well, one, I think going back to the assimilation and, you know, and during the war or prior to the wars, obviously going back to Hank Greenberg. And that was in areas, you know, in the sports world, we didn't have any great excellence. So kids growing up, you know, to look up to now national heroes in sports, we had that for the first time, at least in baseball. And then that's obviously changed over the many years. So with folks, as society changed, you know, during the Hank Greenberg years and my father's generation and my generation, I will tell you, there is actually, at least according to Wikipedia, there is a Jewish Steeler, Jordan Dangerfield, who is from the Ethiopian Jewish community. He's a backup safety for the Steelers, number 37, at least on Wikipedia is listed. He's from Elmont, New York, and they have an Ethiopian Jewish community there. So, but I haven't heard that anywhere before except seeing it on that.
Well, you know, now that we played the Ravens, we might have like 4 people on the field next week, and maybe it'll be the Jew. He'll be the starting quarterback if you're Denver Broncos. So very interesting. By the way, the whole Jewish sports thing for us, Hank Greenberg is a major Jewish influence in a lot of our lives. Even, you know, when you study him, or Sandy Koufax wouldn't play on Yom Kippur kind of thing. Right. And then so but Mark, you're next. And I got to tell you, it's interesting because they interview these people all the time now, and like, you know, it's talking about assimilation. You know, some sports heroes just happen to be Jewish, and then we're like, just like, oh, you're Jewish, and like, yeah, I was born Jewish, but I could care less, right? And then there's like the Hank Greenbergs and the Sandy Koufaxes, and like, no one said to these players, but because as Al said, as soon as you find out they're Jewish, we want to know how Jewish, and then you got these people like, well, they're not really Jewish, which. Yeah, again, yeah. So, okay, Mark, what do you got for us? And whenever there's a person running for president, we find out how many Jews are in the family. Go on, Mark.
It raises a question to me anyway of why should we care at all? You know, we care if the successful athlete is Jewish. We care if a Steeler is Jewish. The question is, why should we care at all? It should be just part of natural day-to-day life, I think.
It's like that line in Airplane, the movie, right? I need some light reading, and here's a tiny pamphlet, famous Jewish sports heroes. You know, yeah, it was the stewardess Hansa, and you know, for those of us, you know, little boys who grew up Jewish, we love our Jewish sports heroes, right? There's a book, there's a sermon, whatever, class. Jewish sports heroes. I'll have to do one too. And, you know, the famous Jewish boxer or something like that. Of course, that's before, you know, when only the NBA was only Jewish at one point. There's just a bunch of little white Jews, you know, not so Jewish anymore. And, you know, but the idea is, you're right, Mark, we are very, I think because we're downtrodden, you know, we're picked on, and you don't usually think of Jews as athletes. Yeah, I remember seeing like an Asian basketball player, NBA player was talking and saying it's so few Asian basketball players out there, great ones.
Yeah, but I don't mean just the sports. I mean, we make a big deal about RBG on the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
We make a big deal about a movie star. We make a big
we
deal
do.
about whatever it happens to be. And we feel a certain amount of, I guess the word is ethnic pride, but I'm not sure in the ideal world we should.
That's interesting. I don't know. I know I do it. Like, don't think that I don't do this, right? If I'm always looking up who's a Jew. Okay, Alan, I'm coming to you. Now you have to unmute yourself. I sent you the request. Alan coming in 3, 2, 1. Hey, look at the timing.
Rabbi, I think part of it is because we've always been in such small numbers, and because they've been trying to kill us for 3,000 years.
Right.
There's a natural tendency, a desire to celebrate the fact that not only are we still here, but that a significant number are successful. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
And I think there's a certain fascination among the general population, getting back to the point of the gentleman who made the reference to Wikipedia.
Right.
If there's somebody successful, blank is a Jew, but they won't say so-and-so who's successful is a Protestant, is a Catholic. They may in some instances, but not nearly to the extent, because there seems to be this fascination among the general populace about this very small 0.2% of the world. And I think that's part of the explanation as to why you hear this.
Yeah, it's very good. And there's two things, what Alan just said. First of all, Hanukkah's coming. I know it's going to look a lot like a Tuesday, but Hanukkah's coming. And Hanukkah is a celebration of the small over the many. Look what we've done with our numbers. Abraham gets promised. If you're a Bible person, you could ask the question, did God lie? Right? So God says to Abraham, I'm going to make you as numerous as the sands of the sea, the stars in the sky. First of all, that doesn't sound really great to have a whole world of Jews. We're not really into that everyone needs to be Jewish, nor has there ever been a time when we outnumber everyone else. And, I'm not so sure that's a good thing. So the question is, did God lie? One answer is it's not the quantity, it's the quality. What we have done with our 0.2% is pretty impressive, right? We not only the surviving through 3,000 years, but also what we do in politics and media and banking. But we also, some people say we do this out of necessity. If you're going to be a persecuted people, and we do know persecution and anti-Semitism, it's better to be the lawmaker. And by the way, it still doesn't save you in all cases, but it's better to be on top of the hill than the bottom of the hill. If someone's going to throw a rock at you. So I think there is a concept among our people that we have to be, push ourselves, or else they're going to push us over, right? And we're not usually the biggest person in the room. Back when I was growing up in Detroit, I did homework for the biggest person in the room. And that's how I survived my freshman year in high school. I'm a little kid and not very strong. I don't know how to use a knife or a bat. That's what they used to use back in those days. I did homework for the biggest kid in class and I was safe. Okay, Larry, what do you got? And that's a Jewish thing.
Just, to mark your comment, it would be nice that we lived in a world where nobody saw color, nobody saw difference. The only thing I think it comes is that if we don't recognize the differences, two things. One is we'll forget who we are. And two is somebody else will point out our differences no matter what. And I think it's part of maybe acceptance. I remember seeing something about something toward the Arab community about, if you use a cell phone, it was invented by, was started by Jews. If you take diabetes, you have diabetes, your medications were developed by Jews. Right. And maybe it's a way of us for saying, not that we're so proud of it, but maybe you shouldn't hate us and appreciate what we've contributed. And it's a way of then justifying a little bit. Maybe we look at, okay, well, we've made contributions to society, appreciate that. We're not saying we're better, but just accept us. And I think too, it extends to all, realms of life, and the sports thing too. I hate Jews, but oh my gosh, my favorite baseball player is Jewish. So maybe I don't hate all Jews, it's a starting point. So it's almost trying to get that acceptance, because somebody will quickly point it out if we forget.
That's two things on that one. And I saw a hand Harvey's next. When I play poker, I mean, I don't say this, I don't tell everyone, but I play a little poker. And when I play a little poker and I'm sitting at a table, and usually not a lot of Jews at the table, actually more than you would expect. And I take someone's money, they're like, I have a kippah on, so because I wear a kippah, they're like, I never met a Jew before, but now I don't like them. So, so I might not be doing the world a favor by playing poker. But the other thing, Larry, is, so I told this story to many of the people in other classes. We have this local doctor, one of these members of our synagogue, and he says he's got these patients, not in Mount Lebanon, and some of them are anti-Semitic, and they say anti-Semitic things to him. And he doesn't look that Jewish. He really doesn't look that Jewish. He doesn't have the most Jewish name in the world. And so these people, these patients say anti-Semitic things to him. And he says to me, I don't know really what to do. It's my business and blah, blah, blah. And he never told them, he said, I never told them that I'm Jewish, but they say anti-Semitic things to him because I guess that's a cool thing to do in some parts of the world. So he has to give this guy heart medicine, because his heart's in trouble, and this heart medicine will save his life. And the heart medicine comes from Israel. So what he does, because the guy doesn't know he's Jewish, he doesn't know he's talking to a Jew. He's like, oh, and here's your heart medicine. It comes from Israel. You should be really thankful. Yeah, that's how he was like trying to get this guy. That was his way of getting this guy, is explaining that his medicine, without Israel, you'd be dead. And so there is that, without Israel, if you want to boycott Israel, stop using your cell phone. Okay, Harvey, then Jerry. Okay, Harvey, then Jerry. That's the order.
Oh,
okay, go ahead.
Okay. I personally believe the reason for anti-Semitism is jealousy. It may come out in other forms. All these notions about Jews being the wealthiest, the smartest, but it boils down to jealousy.
It's
perceived or not.
Right. I was gonna say, some Jews would say, "Oh yeah, you want to be a Jew? Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, you're so jealous. Convert."
He said, "Don't be insulted." He says, "Thank them and say, you know what Jew means? J for justice, E for enlightenment, and W for wisdom." So I always use that.
That's beautiful. Never heard that before. That's beautiful. It is good. Okay, Jerry Rosenfeld, can we hear you? And then Ron. Jerry, then Ron.
Hopefully you can hear me.
We can hear you.
This brings me back to 1956, 1957, when I was on leave in Tokyo. Killing time walking through the Ginza, where there are a lot of these shops where you buy tsutskis and all sorts of crap that I didn't want.
Wait, Jerry, wait, give it a second. Can we hear you now? Talk. Wait. Okay, so you could buy all these tchotchkes you didn't want, and that's the last thing we heard. Keep going.
Okay, so I'm wandering around in this store and looking at some stuff, and I decide I've screwed around long enough, I'm leaving. And as I'm leaving, the guy starts talking to me and yells, "You dirty Jew."
Now, how?
I was so shocked. How did he ever know I was the number one? How is a Jew? Did he ever see a Jew?
And you're talking about like a Japanese guy. I mean, not like
it was in one of these Japanese small stores.
And you wonder if he just calls every cheap person who walks away a dirty Jew, because of this stereotype. Okay, so more about my not as rabbi moment. I play a lot of video games, right? And I used to, back in the old days, you put headphones on and talk to the 8-year-old you're playing. And so I don't use the headphones anymore. So, and here's one of the reasons. I'm playing against a guy in Madden, the NFL football game. And every time I score on him, kind of like poker, I'm pretty good at Madden too, he would say dirty Jew. dirty Jew. Like instead of saying like what you might say Jesus Christ or God damn it, he would say dirty Jew. They're like just like you could see it was just coming out like that was his like stub his toe kind of thing, dirty Jew. Like, and of course I just had to keep on running up the score on him because yeah, he doesn't even know I'm Jewish, right? I'm some fake name. It's not like the Jew. It's not like when I play Madden, they see me or the keeper. It's just a person. It's just a figure on the screen, and my name is like hidden. So, but that was his insult. So I'm wondering, Jerry, whether I mean, I don't think that they know what a Jew looks like more than another, but maybe that was their way of saying that anyone who walks away and doesn't buy something, they're dirty Jews, which is a horrible thing, of course. Justice, equality, wisdom. All right, Ron.
Just trying to take what everybody's saying and formulate how it relates to my experiences. And I'm not trying to offend any group, but I think there's a lot of merit to, we don't try to offend other people, but I think it just seems maybe we do excel more at what we do. Yeah. And here's what's coming to mind. You had mentioned about, hundreds of years ago in Europe, we could not get into trades. So we went into what we could get into. Right. It reminds me of growing up in Menneson in the 50s and 60s and what, education was a big part of our lives with Hebrew school and preparing for bar mitzvahs and, and I'm looking and I'm just thinking back to what my high school peers went into. Obviously, we were in a distinct minority. We were 12 Jews out of 300. They went into the steel mill. They became police officers. They became teachers. They went into, I guess, what was the trades or union professions. And it, maybe we couldn't get into those because it was like who you knew to how, like even now it's difficult to get a teaching even job today, unless you know somebody on the school board. Mm-hmm. You got into the mill because you knew someone who worked there or an uncle or grandfather. So we didn't have that. So we went into, my family was in the retail business. The large majority of retailers in Menneson were Jews, became lawyers, became doctors. So I really don't want to offend anyone. The trades that the others went into, you looked to fit into a mold. You didn't necessarily strive to be an outstanding, you wanted to be a great teacher, the best that you could be, but standing above the other teachers or standing above the other steel makers or bricklayers, you just became one of the group where within what we did, in a sense, we were competing with ourselves to be the best, and we were rising. In some cases, we weren't successful. I have relatives who struggled their whole lives. I have others who became very successful. So, and I also think of, and we did not have any Chinese or Japanese, but I think of some who went to school with my children. And again, education was a big part of what they did. And there seemed to be a higher proportion who excelled, where those who fit into the common molds went along with the
I know I have a Jewish welder in our synagogue, and he can't get into the union, right? There's these steam fitters and all the stuff you see, all these unions that there's not a lot of us in it, and a lot of us in the trade industry. And yet, you're right, there is. It's not so easy. It's easier to be a Jewish accountant, lawyer, doctor kind of thing to get in. Harvard, we have this thing every year with Hillel sends out how many Jews are in colleges, right? 10%, 3%, 90% go to Yeshiva University. Harvard is 25% Jewish. That's quite impressive. It's only Harvard, but we do try to excel now, but so do others, right? So Harrison is in a lab at University of Chicago, but it's not all Jews. It's actually mostly Asian. So it's there are many groups, especially minorities, that do strive to be because if not, you're not going to get a job too. you have to hire, we are self-employed, but because when you want to get into a union, you need to know someone, and you might not, as a Jew, get into the plumbers or, whatever. And you can make good money as a plumber, just not a lot of Jewish plumbers. We do have some. Larry, you got something? Kelly, do you have your hand raised?
Yeah, I did. I just had
Okay.
one more thing that I would just remember as we're talking to it, and I'm sure we've all probably encountered it sometime. And I know Marcy, had this situation at school, and I've had it said to me too, where there's also an expectation of how a Jew should act to some people, and they said, "Gee, it's funny you don't act Jewish."
Oh.
Like by fitting in to be a reasonable person was not a total surprise of what their expectation, what they probably grew up with, of the stereotypes. So that's always a nice compliment that somebody would make you feel comfortable with.
Yeah, yeah. I thought you meant cheap. You meant like loud, New York, that kind of stereotype. Yeah, whatever it is.
Variety of different stereotypes.
Yeah.
Not, just.
Yeah, I know a lot of quiet Jews. Okay, Kelly, did you have your hand raised, or you're just shaking your head? And then Susie, is that a yes or no, Kelly?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, Kelly, then Susie.
Yeah, that's okay. So we were talking about money, and it reminded me of a couple comments that my mom's, cleaning lady had made over the years about, Jewing them down.
Ah, yeah.
And so, like, what? Okay, so, and then, the lady also made a comment to me one time about, Jews are cheap. And I said, well, aren't there cheap Catholics? I mean, what does this have to do with anything?
Right.
I just don't, I don't get it. But
no, the cheapness, the cheapness, a lot of people believe stems from the whole money lending thing, right? Oh, you have to give me my money back. Of course, that was my job. And a lot of them say historically that's the cheapness stereotype. Yeah, it came from. Yeah, that's horrible, but it stuck. It certainly stuck. Susie.
Yes. So I've been listening and driving, and now I'm not driving, but or I'm parked. But I had a question. So when we were talking before about, I think, sports figures and other people, and when it's pointed out that people happen to be Jewish. So you're saying like that the sportscasters would say that someone's Jewish when they're not Jewish?
No.
Or is that just, no, that's just sort of within the Jewish community.
Within the Jewish community. I'm talking about the Minion, Brugger's at Minion, the Minion guys at Brugger's. We is he Jewish? We look it up. And there's all these websites, Jew or not a Jew. And we are into it. Our people are more into it if they're a Jew than the other people. I mean, I think if anyone looks more, if you looked up who looks up is Roethlisberger Jewish, I don't think a bunch of, I don't think the Pittsburgh Steelers people are looking up, but all the Jews were at the beginning.
Right.
And then we did, and then we heard about him. Once we learned about his life, we're like, hopefully he's not a Jew. So.
Yeah, but other religious and ethnic groups, you don't think they do the same?
Oh,
well, I mean, maybe not to the same extent.
I would believe they do. Again, when there's a famous Korean or something in sports, they always say my country's behind me, kind of thing. And for us, it's not usually. We wouldn't say Israel's behind me. If one of these, we would say Jews are behind us. We are. There is.
Yeah, because I mean, to me, it does feel like a bit of a role model kind of thing, like when it's good, you take pride, but and you feel shame when it's made off. Yeah.
Right.
But, no, I just was sort of unclear on that. But the other thing is that there is definitely a lot of anti-Semitism in other parts of the Muslim world, in like Indonesia and Malaysia and places like that. Yeah. So like outside of the Middle East, but, countries that are predominantly or have a lot of Islamic influence definitely, sadly, have a lot of anti-Semitism.
No, we definitely, I've been hearing that too. And the ADL has a lot on that. Let's see. Heidi, I see you. Okay, coming, you got it.
Okay, so to comment to what you were saying, and in part of Susie's comment, is that I think that like for the Morning Minion guys, and they're looking to see, is that person Jewish or not? I think it's a matter of identifying that, hey, we do good things, recognizing that, that maybe to alleviate the anti-Semitic comments or opinions or thoughts about those who are Jewish, because they're trying to identify that we are doing good things for the rest of the world and should be realized or recognized we're not the evil that, as we are supposedly portrayed.
Right. It's such a double-edged sword, right? Oh, look, that person, yeah, we should have a woman president, a black president, every president. But I think Jew president is going to be like the longest, farthest way, even though every time I think, I'm wondering
Jew
if
women would be even the furthest down the
yeah, but I really think that, it's funny. The more we succeed, the more the you just can't please the anti-Semites. And I don't think we should, but we have to, there is where we brag, look at, they see conspiracy, and it is, yeah. But yes, when we do it, we're not doing it anti-Semitically. We're proud. Yeah, we are definitely proud. Here, I got it. But when we are looking it up, who's a Jew, an actor, a sports, a politician, oh, look at who, Kamala's married to, that we take pride, where one person sees pride, another one sees prejudice. It is 101. Yes, Mark, you're my last comment.
First and last.
Oh, wait, you earned it.
To Susie's point, I think you see the minority groups will brag more. You never hear so-and-so is a Catholic or so-and-so is a Protestant. You don't hear the communities bragging about them. Yeah. But I'm forgetting his name, the Pacific Asiatic baseball player for Seattle that hit 3,000 hits and was one of the best players. Suzuki was it? Something like that. Yeah. But they bragged about him. You'll hear them brag about the female football kicker who just appeared in a college game down here in the DC area. They'll brag about her because it's so different. And that it was the same thing when the blacks broke into Major League Baseball.
Jackie
Robinson, Larry Doby, those were the first couple of players. And so we brag because Jewish ball players really a rarity for the most part. But the other major groups, if you will, I use that word with quotations, you don't hear a word about them, and then the communities don't say anything about them.
Unless you're running for president and you're JFK and you're a Catholic, then that was a big deal. So we are done. I try to respect your lunch hours in case you have a job, because it's really tough out there. Thank you for joining us. It is Thursday. Tomorrow is Shabbat. There's always something happening. So I think Torah Yoga is on Sunday. No, on Saturday. But we're still here. So don't give up. Stay safe. Avoid the Thanksgiving, wave that's coming. Okay, so that they keep talking about. And line and get your vaccines. All right. God bless you. Hey, have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you.